Welcome back. All right, time to discuss the New York Islanders as the season previews roll along. The New York Islanders, not a team that a lot of people are expecting to be a playoff team this season. And the way they've approached this offseason, I don't think that new GM Matthew Darch is. I'm not going to say he's not concerned with the playoffs, but he hasn't really approached this offseason like they have to make the playoffs. This is a really big year. They only have 1,625,000 in cap space, and yet it feels like they're okay with maybe missing the playoffs. And at this point, we'll see how things turn out. So, looking at their lineup and looking at their top six, you've got Anders Lee, Bo Horvat, Kyle Palmieri, Jonathan Drouin joins this team, Matthew Barzal, and Simon Holmstrom. Now, of course, one of the key things is going to be keeping Matthew Barzal healthy. If they're going to be able to score enough goals, it's going to have to be a team that includes Matthew Barzal. Horvat needs to have a little bit more production as well as production dip this past season. Just overall, they need a little more than what they've been getting. Now, looking at their bottom six, there are a couple of interesting names here. You've got Duclair. Now, Duclair had a public falling out with the organization, and there was some speculation about whether or not he might be on the move. At this point, he is still a member of the New York Islanders. So there hasn't been a move yet. Pajot's there on the third line. Shabanov is the one that I've got as one to watch. So Shabanov or Shabanov, however it ends up being pronounced, Russian names. Sometimes they stress the second syllable, sometimes not. But I'll say Shabanov because that's usually the way that it's pronounced. There's a lot, not necessarily a lot riding on him having a good season, but he's seen as a pickup who should be able to jump right into the lineup and help right away. And they need that. Then you got Siplikov, who had a pretty good first year in the NHL last year. Cizikas and Heineman. Heineman, of course, arriving from Montreal in that trade involving Dobson. So the bottom six is okay. Obviously, there's no more identity line there for the New York Islanders, and the team's going to end up getting a bit younger, but likely not a playoff level roster when you look at that forward group. Now, depth-wise, you've got Engvall. That Engvall contract, it's not a great one. The good news is as the cap keeps going up, it hurts them less. McLean, Gatcomb, Callum Ritchie, who came over, of course, from Colorado. He is trying to force his way into this lineup. If he proves in the preseason he can score, I would think that they'll make room for him. Highmore, Foodie, Gauthier, Beckman, Jeffries, Maggio, Lucas, and Veremyev being the rest of the depth up front for the New York Islanders. This is a squad that, I don't think they're going to be bottom five bad, but I don't see them as being a playoff team either. Looking at the blue line, it's a good blue line. Losing Dobson definitely affects their offense from the blue line. So you've got Pelech, you've got Pulock, who have to play together. Romanov and D'Angelo. So Romanov's got to cover for D'Angelo's defensive weaknesses. Boquist and Mayfield. So Boquist is 1-2 that's very offensively minded, a little bit sloppy on the defensive side. So that's going to mean Mayfield's going to have to cover the defensive side of things. It's an interesting group. We'll see how it turns out. Depth-wise, they have Bear, George, McWard, Mitchell, Odelius, Warren, Pulkkinen, and, of course, the question of whether or not Matthew Schaefer ends up on this team out of training camp. You can see that they could probably use Schaefer in the lineup, but in the event that they decide, you know what, we'll just, let him have another year of development and not bring him into the Islanders, they can afford to do that as well. They have a six defenseman who can absolutely play in the NHL, especially if you're not overly concerned with making the playoffs and you just want to make sure you got veterans out there that can play and keep games close. They have a lineup that can do that. Now, of course, goaltending. Sorokin, for me, the MVP of this team if they're going to get anywhere near the playoffs. Sorokin has to be a fantastic goaltender. The problem is he got overplayed last season. I don't think there's much of a chance he won't get overplayed this season. His backup is Riddick. Riddick's going to play probably 20-25 games. But the difference between David Riddick and Ilya Sorokin is pretty high. So Patrick Waugh is, I don't think he's going to be shy about playing Sorokin in back-to-backs. I think 3 games in 4 nights is a little bit of a bridge too far there, but we'll see what he does. Then you got Varlamov on IR. We still have not heard anything about when he's going to return. But That's why you pick up Riddick, so that you do have that stopgap there. And then Högberg is the number 4 in terms of goaltenders currently on their depth chart. So I mentioned the cap space, 1,625,000. I do believe it's not my first take. So I believe I said the cap space, and if I didn't, I just did. So the channel vote 2%, say first or second for this team, and so either that's troll voting, which happens, or it's very optimistic Islander fans. 10% say third or fourth, and then it's 58% voting fifth or sixth, and 30% say seventh or eighth. I could see a scenario where that 30% that say 7th or 8th could find themselves correct. So, yeah, the Islanders, it's going to be interesting, and their schedule's interesting too. 6 out of 11 are away in October. 8 out of 15 are at home in November. 8 out of 14 are at home in December. So more than half in November and December at home. If they could build up a good home record, who knows? January's a busy month as well. 9 out of 15 are away from home. February, 4 out of 5 are away from home. March, busy. 8 out of 16 at home. So they have a 16-game month and 2 15-game months. In April, they only have 6 games left. Some teams are playing 9 games in April. They're playing 6. 5 of those 6 are at home. So if they can survive what is a very busy time in the regular season in March, if they're still in contention, if they've still got a chance in those last 6 games, 5 of them being at home, you never know. So looking at the record since 2021-2022, I'd love to tell you where they stand in the overall standings. However, right now the NHL website not providing me with that information. So the math that I've utilized says 153 wins, 128 regulation losses, 47 losses in overtime or shootouts. Their top 5 scorers over that time period: Brock Nelson, 299 games, 127 goals, 119 assists for 246 points. He, of course, is now in Colorado. Barzal, 241 games played, 58 goals, 152 assists for 210 points. Dobson, 308 games played, 46 goals, 163 assists for 209 points. Of course, he's off to Montreal. Anders Lee, 321 games, 105 goals, 82 assists for 187 points. Paul Mary, 288 games, 85 goals, 83 assists for 168 points for Kyle Palmieri. Now, top prospects, they have a few that are yet to sign. And I'm not even including Schaefer, who, of course, has a chance to play for the team this year. But you got Victor Eklund, Cole Eiserman, and Kashan Aitchison, which all 3 of them, by my count, do not currently have contracts, but they're all considered to be pretty good prospects. So the Islanders are building up their prospect pool after some lean years there where they were trying to stay in the playoffs and didn't necessarily get a lot of top draft picks. It does feel like that's changed. I will say this: if there's a team that could probably use an infusion of talent via a top draft pick this year, whether it's McKenna or whoever, the Islanders, I would say, qualify. If you're looking at that forward group, if they could add a player with that level of talent, that could be huge for them. Now, looking at their record this season, 35, 35, and 12, so an even NHL 500. 24-25 scoring leaders. Bo Horvat led the way, 81 games, 28 goals, 29 assists, 57 points. It's rare for me to say that a leading scorer of a team probably needs to score a little more, but I will say that here of Horvat. Anders Lee, 82 games, 29 goals, 25 assists, 54 points. So Anders Lee, the pucks were going in the net from this year, comparatively speaking to the year before where he only had 20 goals. Paul Mary, 82 games, 24 goals, 24 assists, 48 points. Holmstrom, 75 games, 20 goals, 25 assists, 45 points. And he's one on this list that I could see his goal total going up, his point total going up a little bit as well. And Brock Nelson, at the time of the trade, 61 games, 20 goals, 23 assists, 43 points. Of course, then he went to Colorado. And now for the Islanders, their center depth, it's still pretty good as long as Barzal's healthy. That's the thing. Their center depth is fine as long as Barzal's healthy, even with Nelson gone. So the goaltending, as I mentioned, Sorokin got played a lot, ended up going 30, 24, and 6 with a .907 save percentage. Varlamov, before the injury, went 3, 4, and 3 with an .889 save percentage. Högberg, 2, 6, and 3 with an .878 save percentage, so not great there. Skarek went 0 and 1 with an .872 save percentage. Lennox had 1 appearance, faced 2 shots, and allowed a goal on the 2 shots that he faced. So not a lot there, very small sample size. In terms of most of the goaltenders outside of Sorokin, really, it was Sorokin's net. He had 60 decisions out of the 82 games. So looking at the last 5 years of playoffs for the New York Islanders, 2021 they lost in the conference final in 7 against Tampa. And that was the second year in a row they went to a conference final. And I felt like, maybe these Islanders, maybe they're going to be tough in the playoffs. However, they missed the playoffs in 2022. In 2023, they lost in 6 games in the first round against Carolina. 2024, they lost in the first round in 5 games against Carolina. And this year, of course, they did not qualify for the playoffs. The expectations are that their missing of the playoffs will continue. So looking at their numbers on the power play, 12.6%. That is 31st in the National Hockey League this past season. And I don't think it's out of bounds for me to say that's not acceptable. Their penalty kill, 72.2%. That was 31st in the league, also not acceptable. And if you add those two numbers together, you get 84.6, which is anemic. Those are special teams numbers that just are not going to work. I don't think it's too far to say, I think it's fair to say, better way of putting it, fair to say, that if the special teams had been league average, we would be talking about the Islanders were close to the playoffs and just missed. And if they'd had good special teams, we might be talking about how those special teams helped carry them into the playoffs. Their goals for 27th at 2.71 per game. Their goals against 20th at 3.13 goals against per game. And those numbers both need to improve. Can Patrick Waugh get them there? Obviously, like I said, this is not an offseason the Islanders have approached as if they're trying to, get their way into contention for the Stanley Cup final or anything. This has been a team that's looked like they're in a bit of a retool. Not a rebuild because we haven't seen like a bunch of veterans getting traded off, but a little bit here and there. And it does tell you that odds are the Islanders are probably going to be out of the playoffs this year. But maybe with Matthew Darch in charge, you'll look at the long-term future now for the Islanders. While I commend Lou Lamoriello for keeping them in the hunt, getting them into the playoffs here and there, it did feel like they were an old team and that maybe they needed a bit of a retool or some kind of change that he wasn't seemingly interested in, which is fair. Not all GMs want to go through that process, but it seems like Matthew Darch is willing to go through that process. We'll see how it goes. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.